Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Brazil once again, and we're going to have a look at yet another of the beers that I picked up in my recent order from Beerdome down in the Netherlands. Now, it seems that Beerdome have a fairly regular supply of Brazilian beers these days, which is great to see. I've long heard that the Brazilian beer scene is thriving, and it seems that they've got a really kind of interesting style of brewing down there. Lots of different fruit adjuncts, lots of different kind of coffee beans and things like this. So yeah, it's definitely nice to see that the Brazilian beers are starting to make it outside of South America a little bit, and I hope that we can continue to review these beers regularly for you here on the channel, and I hope that we can get a hold of some other stuff from wider Latin America as well. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Sao Paulo, which seems to be a little bit of a kind of craft beer hub in Brazil these days, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel before, albeit this is a different brand of beer that they do. So this beer comes to you from Startup Brewing, and I've reviewed beers from their UX Brew brand before, but this time we are going to try something from their Cervejaria Juan Caloto brand, which seems to be their sort of sour beer brand. But yeah, this particular beer is called the Los Embalos de Ragtime Mango. It comes in at 7.2% ABV, and this one is a Mango Berliner Weisse. So yeah, I think this should be really interesting. So yeah, my first time trying one of the beers from the Cervejaria Juan Caloto brand. Had one beer, an IPA from the UX Brew brand that they do before, and I think before that I had a collaboration beer that they did with Spike Brewery here in Sweden actually. That was brewed under the UX Brew brand, and that was also in collaboration with another brewery I think called Three Monkeys or something like that. But yeah, regardless, it's nice to feature a couple of Brazilian beers for you here on the channel, and I sincerely hope that you guys enjoy this little Brazilian mini-series that I'm able to do for you. And I will see about making Brazilian beers a regular fixture on the channel now that I know where to get a hold of them from. So yeah, very, very curious to see how this one turns out. If memory serves me correctly, this will actually be my first Brazilian sour beer that I'm reviewing, so that makes it another interesting perspective on this review as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Startup Brewing before, and hopefully we can add more to the list of Cervejaria Juan Caloto beers. This is the very first time I'm trying something from this brand, as I mentioned earlier, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for the Brazilian beers, and this beer will appear in that, as will other subsequent Brazilian beer reviews that I do. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Cervejaria Juan Caloto and Startup Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've mentioned to you already, Juan Caloto are one of the brands of beer produced by Startup Brewing, along with Cerveja Unicorn, Cervejaria and UX Brew, who have featured on the channel before. But this brewery is based in the Itupeva district in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and it was founded by Andre Franken and Andre Kunrath back in 2016. So the two of these guys worked in the tech sector, and they met as colleagues back in 2012, and they found that they had a common interest in beer, so they started home brewing together as a bit of a hobby. But then they started to produce beer commercially, first as a gypsy brewer in the early days, and then they constructed their own brewery in Itupeva, which opened in June of 2018. So the brewery apparently has capacity to brew around 120,000 litres of beer per month, and they've been gradually working up to that capacity over the last few years. As of February 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 45 different beers and under the Juan Caloto range, and there's been various beers released under the other different brands as well. I think there was about 30 or 40 different beers under the UX Brew range as well. So hopefully I can try some things from Cerveja Unicorn at some point and Cerveja, but yeah, so far it's just been Juan Caloto and UX Brew that we've managed to have a look at. But yeah, I will see about doing another Brazilian beer order from beer dome in the Netherlands at some stage, maybe later on in the year, because I do have a few considerable stockpiles to work my way through from other parts of the world at the moment. But yeah, as I said, really cool to feature some Brazilian beers for you here on the channel. My very first Brazilian sour beer, if memory serves me correctly, and hopefully this one is interesting. But yeah, that's all I can tell you about Startup Brewing for the Woman and Cervejaria Juan Caloto. I do apologise for any bad Portuguese pronunciations in this one, Brazilian Portuguese pronunciations. You know, Portuguese and Spanish are languages that I'm just, you know, not familiar with in the slightest. But hopefully we can change that in the future. I do want to go down to South America and, you know, to visit Mexico and things like that as well. I think that would be pretty cool. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can tell you. If you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this beer before we open up. I do have to compliment them on the artwork here. I do like the sort of kind of hand painted style that it has, you know, which is quite you know, it does seem pretty nice actually. I do wonder, I don't know if it's just me, but this seems very, very similar to Spanish actually. I know Spanish and Portuguese do have you know, a big similarity between them, but yeah, Los Embalos de Ragtime Mango. Yeah, it's interesting. I would have thought, if I looked at this, I probably would have thought it was Spanish. But yeah, as you can see on the side of the can here, there you can see, if I just put that right up to the camera, you can see Startup Brewing here. And then a lot of Brazilian beers have this symbol, which is the you know, Artisanal Independente Brasileira, basically, yeah, the Association of Independent Brazilian Breweries, if you like. But yeah, Startup Brewing, as I say, there you can see on the back, there it is, Cervejaria Juan Caloto, and then there is a little bit about the beer here as well, and I've managed to translate this into English. I found it on Untappd. This little bit was on Untappd, so I fired it into Google Translate. So this translates into English, this bit of text here. After eating mango as if there was no tomorrow, Juan Caloto is possessed by the ragtime rhythm. What to expect from the show? Fascinating balance of acidity, alcohol, corpulence and tropicality. Interesting. Campañas del Jerife, wait for the music to finish to attack. What they don't know is that when Juan Caloto starts El Ragtime Mango, he doesn't stop. So yeah, I think that's probably not a perfect translation just by the look of it, but I think you kind of get the idea of it. So yeah, pretty cool actually. So let me just get rid of that, and then I guess we can open this beer up. So this one is a half-litre can, 500 millilitres. And I'm honestly not sure how much I paid for this, but you know, the Brazilian beers are a little bit more kind of expensive because obviously the South American or Latin American Confederation does not have a trade deal with the EU from what I understand, so we still have to pay tariffs on these beers, but I think I must have paid about €7 or something like that for this beer. So for those of you watching in different parts of the world, you know, maybe £6 sterling, maybe about, you know, maybe about $8 American or something like that. But you know, Brazilian beers, we don't come across them very often. It was just a case of, you know, bugger it, why not? I spent about €100 on the Brazilian beers themselves, and then I had to pay a little bit for the postage. But you know, it's a bit of a treat, and I think I've told you a lie, sorry, I thought this was a half-litre can. This one is 473 millilitres, which is 1 American pint. But yeah, 7.2% Berliner Weisse, this one, so quite strong for a Berliner Weisse. But let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Curious to see what this one has in store for us. And this one does have hops in it. It says lupula on the side here. But yeah, let's go for it. Just was hoping that it didn't kind of explode and go crazy. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. This looks as if it is going to be very, very nice. Oh, that looks... Look at just how thick that thing is as it pours. Sugar up the last little bit because I'm guessing there might be a wee bit of sediment in this beer. There we are. I think that's about enough for the pour. I think, yeah, we've maybe got about 80% of it in the. We've maybe got about 80% or so of it in the glass at the moment. But yeah, as you can see, before that fades away, that's poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy kind of whitehead there, but that is just fading away to be, you know, not a lot. But yeah, it looks pretty damn good. So as you can see, this beer is poured a lovely, very bright, very hazy yellow. I mean, you would expect a Berliner Weisse to be like this, the wheat, and I guess if there's oats in this one, I don't speak enough Portuguese to tell you whether there's oats in this, but maybe we can tell from the flavour of it. But you know, this beer is ridiculously hazy. It's definitely one of these kind of more modern, big fruity sours. And I do wonder actually if the European brewers who are brewing these big kind of gozes and fruity sours and stuff, if they've taken a bit of inspiration from the Brazilian beer scene. But you can see that this one has a ridiculous level of haze to it. I mean, when it's a 7.2% Berliner Weisse, that is what you would expect. So there's probably a hell of a lot of wheat, and I would guess a bit of oat in this one as well. But in terms of its colour, I would compare it to a mango juice, you know, a lovely kind of bright yellow colour. But in fairness, it is a wee bit darker than some of the other mango sours that I've come across. Remember, when it comes to the colour of your beers, they're dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil, and you know, the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a thus you get a darker colour out of it, but it's dependent on the malts that you use in the first place. And in this case, with these kind of fruit sours 3, it is dependent on exactly what kind of adjunct you use. But yeah, the colour of this beer and the appearance of it looks very, very nice, I have to say. So yeah, it looks very, very good. So yeah, nothing more we can really say about the appearance of that, but just look how kind of thick and milky this one looks. This is what I've heard is the kind of trademark of Brazilian brewing, fruit adjuncts in beers. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. I'm very, very curious about this beer. Yeah, to be honest with you, it's exactly what you'd expect. And I've said this in other reviews before. Personally, I find that these kind of big fruity Berliner Weisses, the big fruity gozes, they're not the most complex in terms of aroma, but they're just really nice. You know, they're quite straight shooting in terms of their flavour profile and their aroma, but if they're done right, they're beautiful beers. And I've got a feeling that this one's going to be another example that kind of proves that hypothesis that I've put forward. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is very, very nice. So, I mean, straight away with this one, it's the big juicy fruity character that's going to jump out at you. You can smell those lovely juicy, very fresh mangoes that the beer has. The mangoes actually have, you can smell they've got a little tiny touch of sourness to them as well, which is interesting. So you definitely get a wee bit of the kind of citricy, almost lemony note from the yeast in this beer. You definitely get some of that. But overall, the smell of this beer is actually very kind of yogurty, like a sort of fruit smoothie sort of thing. That's really what you kind of get out of this beer for the most part. So yeah, the aroma of this beer is really nice. So if you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you can get a little bit of bitiness from the wheat, and you can smell that this beer is really, really just very, very thick and wheaty in a sense. But I do suspect there's a bit of oat in here as well. There's definitely a bit of oaty character to this one for sure. Because you can smell it really has a sort of almost, I hesitate to say lactose, it has a little bit of that sort of just yogurty kind of character in it as well, and that's, I find that it's always oats that give you that little bit of yogurty character to it. So it does remind me in its aroma of a kind of mangoey sort of tropical fruit yogurt sort of thing. So yeah, I really like how that kind of pieces together. And the aroma of this beer, it's a very interesting one from that perspective. Yeah, it's a very straight shooting beer. It's a mango Berliner Weisse. You get wheat, you get oats, you get that kind of sweet yogurty thing, you get mango, and then you know you get a few kind of hoppy elements to it as well. So yeah, the malty side of this beer is not a surprise. Nice kind of smooth oats, a little bit of sweetness in there, you know. It definitely comes across as being quite yogurty. You can get a bit of the wheaty bitiness if you take the aroma in a bit more deeply. None of that is a surprise, to be honest with you. Big, thick, fruity Berliner Weisse, this one. So you do get a little bit of hoppy character out of this one. There's a teeny, I do wonder if it's maybe like a German noble hop or something that's in this one, or maybe a little bit of American Citra. Citra would be an obvious candidate for this because Citra gives you a lot of mangoey flavours, but there's various other hops that you could use in there. Idaho 7, Eldorado, you know, things like this. The Brazilians may well have their own varieties of hops that might work quite well, but in Europe we don't know about these yet. But yeah, for me, the hoppy side of the beer, there's a little bit of earthiness there. You do get a wee bit of floral aromaticity, and there is a bit of grassiness in the beer as well. I do like hops being used in these kind of beers. There's a number of breweries here in Sweden, for example, that don't use hops in the big fruity gozes, the big fruity Berliner Weisses. But personally, I think putting the hops in these beers just gives you a little bit more depth of aroma and flavour. And you can definitely get that out of this beer. So a little bit of lighter grassiness. As I said, there's a wee touch of zestiness to the grassiness. There's a bit of floral aromaticity, but I don't find the floral aromatic notes all that prominent, and just a tiny touch of earthiness in there. But yeah, as you would expect from this one, the fruity side of this beer, it's all about that mango. It's got a lovely juicy kind of mango-y quality to it. You might be forgiven for thinking there's a few hints of like apricot and stuff in this beer as well, and you'll often get that in these big fruity sours. You might think that there's some other kind of fruit complexities there, but it's got a lovely big kind of creamy mango sort of quality to it. But yeah, wee kind of tiny hints of apricot and papayas and stuff like that in this one. But you know, obviously it is all about the kind of mango-y qualities. So yeah, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of that beer, because I think this really comes across very, very nicely. So I have to say, I'm quite excited to see what this one has in store for us. So yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma, as I said, but we're going to taste this one now. So this one is the Los Embalos de Ragtime Mango, if I've pronounced the name right, from Cervejaria Juan Caloto, part of the startup brewing company in Sao Paulo down in Brazil. Let's have a taste of this beer, a 7.2% Berliner Weisse. Slange, skål, felicidades. Yeah, that's pretty damn solid, I have to say. It's actually just like drinking, you know, fruit juice, to be honest with you. Let me just see if there's, because I'm guessing there will be a little bit of sediment in this one. Let's just fire that in the glass, because obviously, actually on the bottom of the can, there's no sediment in this. That's interesting, because, you know, I would be torn what to think about Brazilian beers, just as, you know, as a stereotype, if you like. Brazil, obviously, I would imagine, very hot, very humid country. So in some ways, my first impression of this beer is it's actually a remarkably kind of drinkable sour in a lot of ways. So that's an interesting point, I think, to make about this beer for sure, is that it's very, very drinkable compared to some of the Swedish sours. It's just not quite as thick as them, but at the same time, when you think about the climate down there, that makes sense. So yeah, but let's just take another sip of it now that we've got everything in it and see. Does feel a wee bit thicker, but not massively so. So yeah, I don't think there actually was that much sediment in this one, which I was worried about because it had been sitting in the fridge for just a little bit. But yeah, it actually has the same level of consistency as, you know, a kind of tropical fruit juice or something like that. So yeah, it's not madly thick, this, but it's again, as I've said with these Berliner Weisses and Goses and stuff before, they're very straight shooting, and this is just another really nicely crafted beer. You know, if you've had these kind of styles of beer before, it's not going to be one that's going to blow the head off you, but it's just really nicely crafted and a really nice example of the style. So thumbs up to Cervejaria Juan Caloto for this one. I need to try a few more of their beers, like maybe a more kind of berry orientated one or something like that. I'm not sure how common berry sours are down there though, right enough. It'd be cool to try some with some native Brazilian fruits. That would be an interesting thing. But yeah, I think this is pretty nice actually. So thumbs up to them for this. Another solid beer from Startup Brewing. So yeah, where to start with this one then? Straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of smooth. You can feel a little bit of the barley malt there. That just blankets the middle third of your palate there. So you can get a wee bit of a soft kind of white bready character in the beer there, and that works really quite nicely for it. I'm a little bit torn as to whether there would be lactose or something in this beer. Agua malta de cerveja, aveia, malta de trigo, suco de mango, aqua Demilbo, malto. It's got maltodextrin in it, lupulo de devar. So that kind of makes sense as to why the beer is sort of so smooth, if you like. So it's not lactose, it's maltodextrin that's giving you that. The dextrose sugar. Dextrose sugars are very common in New England IPAs and stuff like this, just to make them really smooth. So that's why I was thinking there would be a bit of lactose. It almost gave the impression of a bit of lactose in there. So yeah, the middle part of your palate there, you get a nice kind of smooth white bready quality to this one, and on top of that you're getting that nice smoothness out of the beer. That it almost comes across as being a bit oaty. It almost really comes across as being a little bit oaty in a sense. So the malt base is actually quite straight shooting in a lot of ways. So on top of that soft white bread, you've got the maltodextrin kind of smoothness. It feels, pardon me, a little bit oaty on top of that, and you do get an almost slight sweetness coming out of the oaty side of the beer as well, that sort of oaty-like side of the beer, I should say, too. But other than that, I don't think there's too much to report in terms of the malt base in the middle third of your palate. So yeah. So yeah, I really like how that goes together. I mean, it's a solid, it really is a very, very kind of solid beer in that sense. The malt base is just really nicely composed. If you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you do get a wee tiny touch of a slightly kind of bread crusty note, but in the back third of your palate you can feel the wheat is really nice and thick. And so the back third of your palate is definitely thicker than the rest of the beer, and I think that works really nicely. So you can feel that thicker, you can definitely feel that nice kind of thicker wheaty quality in there. The thickness of it just drops away a little bit as you move kind of further forward. On that border region between middle third and back third of the palate, it drops away quite a bit. Then you just get a nice kind of smoothness, kind of smooth, slightly medium thick quality in the kind of middle third of your palate. To be honest, in terms of flavour, I don't think there's much else to say about the malty side of this beer. Again, it's very, very straight shooting in a sense. So I really like how that, I do like how that goes together. Sorry, computer going crazy. But yeah, I do like how that side of the it goes together as well. So yeah, the malty side of this beer is really, again, very nicely executed. But yeah, in terms of the in terms of the hoppy side of things, then again, it's what you'd expect. In the back corners of the palate, there's a little tiny touch of earthiness there. As you move further forward, it does develop a little bit of a slightly herbal quality, and as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it develops a little bit of a kind of floral aromatic note. But this is not, usually Berliner Weisses are very low in terms of IBUs, and again, this beer sort of sticks to that kind of rule, if you like. So yeah, it's got a nice little bit of that kind of floral aromatic note to it, which is good, I would say, but it's not madly, it's not kind of madly floral, if you like. But then round the front curve of the palate, it's got a nice little bit of a lighter sort of grassiness to it, which I think goes together really nicely. I think that having hops in these beers just gives you that little bit more depth of flavour, and I think it works. I do think it works very, very well in this sense. So yeah, hoppy side of the beer is what you'd expect, and again, it just adds a little bit more depth to the beer. So yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of things then. So on the front third of your palate, as I always say, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the hops. So on that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, there's a wee bit of a more kind of bread crusty note there, and it does feel like it's a nice kind of thick white bread note. I think the maltodextrin has something to do with that, and you can feel that nice maltodextrin, almost oaty-like smoothness is just kind of forming the baseline of the beer there. But the fruity notes that you get from the hops, it's mango, there's a little bit of apricot papaya type quality in there. I would guess that it's most likely to be a bit of citra that's in here, and very likely it's a late addition hop. Remember, when it comes to adding hops into beers, the earlier on you add them into the wort boil, that's when you're going to get more bitterness out of them. But as you kind of progressively go through the wort boil, you get more and more kind of flavour and aroma out of them. So yeah, bear that in mind when you're thinking about hops. Absolutely. And just with the way the things are coming out in this beer, it's very likely that the hops will be late edition, but you know, there's a few things it could be. It could be a bit of El Dorado that's in here. It could be a bit of Citra. You know, Victoria's Secret from Australia would be another one. Galaxy at a push, although Galaxy would give you some more pungent fruits, I would think. Idaho 7 is another option. There's a few different things here, and of course, we're not even thinking about any possible Brazilian hops in there. But yeah, it's got a lovely, the hoppy side of this beer has a lovely smooth kind of mango, apricot, papaya type quality to it. So yeah, I think that's definitely fair to say. But whenever you add fruit into beer as an adjunct, it always suppresses a little bit of the green side of the hops, and you can definitely feel the mango around the very edge of your palate there. That's where it always comes out. There's a little bit of a kind of citricy quality in there, which I think goes together really nicely. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this beer for sure. It's you know, I do like that aspect of this beer. There's just a nice kind of juicy mango-y note kind of sitting on top of those green parts of the beer as well, so that you've got the bit of grassiness underneath there, but then some juicy mango just kind of sits on top of it. What I'll say about this beer is that it doesn't do anything surprising for the Berliner Weisse style, but it's just a really nicely crafted, really nicely executed beer. And you can't ask for much more than that. There's so many breweries out there these days, you know, to find something that really is unusual and crazy, I think is getting harder and harder. So all you can ask for is that breweries do things that are well crafted, and you know, they've certainly managed that with this beer. 100%, I would say that for sure. So yeah, let's finish off this review then with the mouthfeel. Let's look at that. So yeah, for me then, the mouthfeel of this beer, I would say that this is kind of top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's actually got a really kind of silky and almost very slightly slick mouthfeel to it. IBUs of this beer, I think, are very low. I think from a technical perspective, this beer is probably 0 IBUs, but I think, you know, it'll have like 5 or 10 IBUs, something like that. It will have a little bit of IBU to it. But yeah, very, very low IBUs in this beer, 10 at the most. But yeah, the malty base, like I say, is lovely and smooth. The maltodextrin's really giving you that sort of yogurty type vibe to the beer, so it has that going for it. And then you've also just got a lovely, big, juicy, fruity character to this one, both from the hops and from the actual fruit additions into the beer as well. So I really, really like how this one goes together. This gets a big thumbs up from me, and trying this first beer from Cervejaria Juan Caloto makes me quite curious to try a few others from them in the future. So this is a brewery that I will be keeping an eye out for, and no doubt I will try a few things from UX Brew as well. But yeah, for the moment, let's leave it there. So yeah, this one was the Los Embalos de Ragtime Mango, if I've given it the right name. Let me just check. The Los Embalos de Ragtime Mango. Yep, 7.2% Berliner Weisse. With a lot of, well, with mucha mango in it. I do like that. So it's basically a Berliner Weisse with a shitload of mango in it. 7.2% ABV from Cervejaria Juan Caloto, part of Startup Brewing in Sao Paulo in the Itupeva area in Brazil. So yeah, this one has been really nice to try, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this beer as well. So yeah, let's leave it at that then. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Cervejaria Juan Caloto and Startup Brewing, and I will catch you guys at some point soon. Hopefully I can review some beers from the Unicorn and, was it Avion? The Avos, sorry, just looking at the notes again, the Avos. The Avos beer brand. It'd be quite cool to try some of their stuff. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer. Let me know some other Brazilian breweries that I should have a look at if you are watching from down there. That would be really cool to hear. And fingers crossed at some stage I can get to Sao Paulo and Brazil and take a look at some of those breweries. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media. Check out this brewery, and I will catch you guys soon. Make sure you check out beerdome.nl if you want to get a hold of some Brazilian beers here in the European Union. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and catch you guys very soon.